The New York Mets saw the return of Max Scherzer on Tuesday night, and he did not disappoint. But unfortunately, the Mets offense did, as they did not score a single run. They got shut out by the Cincinnati Reds. On the show today, in the first segment, we'll talk about the game, mainly Max Scherzer's performance and the lack of performance from the Mets offense. And then what I want to do is dive into the numbers here when it comes to this team offensively. What has happened? If you look at where they were through the first 2 months of the season and where they've been since June, there is a drastic drop off when it comes to what this team is doing offensively. I'll try to explain what's going on and see what could change to get this team back on the right path. We'll talk about all of that on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, it was great to see Max Scherzer back on the hill for the Mets, and he was absolutely dominant. Just completely carved up that Reds lineup, gets through the first inning, less than 10 pitches, goes out, strikes out 11, gives up 2 hits. I believe both of them were singles. It was unbelievable. He lowered his ERA to 2.26 on the year, only threw 79 pitches, 57 of them strikes. If Scherzer was full force and this wasn't his first start, we could have seen Scherzer go a 7th inning. Who knows, maybe even an 8th inning. But first time back out, get him through 6. Again, 79 pitches. The guy's unbelievable. And to see him back, to see what he can do for you, the way he could just take a team, particularly one like the Reds, and just carve through that lineup. He just knew that there was not a single batter in that lineup he was scared of. He wasn't worried about Jonathan India, Brandon Drury, Tommy Pham as a top 3 in a lineup. Not worried about it. But unfortunately, the Mets lost to that team because despite the great pitching from Max Scherzer, despite Joely Rodriguez having a really good inning, striking out 2, despite Tommy Hunter walking the tightrope, finding a way out of a situation where there was 2 runners in scoring position with 1 out, and somehow he gets out of it, gets a big pop-up, gets out of the inning, and you look at where the Mets were standing, you go into that last inning, and Seth Lugo doesn't have it. And once again, I know there's Mets fans that go, here we go again, Seth Lugo blows another one. Lugo's also the guy that, saved the last game. He's also the guy that's had some good performances. He was tasked to go in that spot, tie game. Obviously, you're saving Edwin Diaz maybe for a 10th inning if you got to it. So do you blame Buck Showalter? No. Do you blame Seth Lugo? A little bit. You blame him for walking a couple. That's obviously not ideal. And then ultimately, ends up giving up the walk-off sacrifice fly. But the reality is it's the Mets offense. I mean, they were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. They had 6 hits on the game, so they did out-hit the Reds there by 2. They drew 3 walks, but they did nothing to be able to put any of those runners in. You look up and down the lineup. Starling Marte, he showed up, 2 for 2 with 2 walks, got on base in every at-bat. Mark Canha went 2 for 4. Jeff McNeil got a hit, and Brandon Nimmo got a hit. But you look at Francisco Lindor, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts. Pete Alonso, 0 for 4 for 2 strikeouts. Eduardo Escobar, 0 for 3. JD Davis looked completely overmatched yet again, 0 for 3. Why do they continue to force feed this guy against lefties? His numbers this year are pretty obvious. Sucks against left-handed pitching. That's just what it is. Okay? If JD Davis was listening to this, I apologize for putting it that blatantly, but look at the numbers, dude. What else could I say? You know what I mean? And you look at his career, and I've talked about it all year. As much as the Mets have been analytically driven, or they want to be analytically driven, why do they continue this reverse splits platoon? I wouldn't play JD Davis against any lefties. You look at his career numbers, and granted, overall, he's been an above average hitter for his career against both left-handed and right-handed pitching, but still better against righties than lefties. You have to continue to throw him out there. And I don't want to make it seem like the Mets lineup is the only reason that they lost this game. Let's give credit where credit's due. The Reds have this pitching prospect here, Nick Lodolo, one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. He got sent down because he struggled so much early in the season. This was his first start back up since April. Different guy than the last time he pitched on a big league mound. Let's actually look at what Nick Lodolo did in the minor leagues after getting sent down this year because obviously he was demoted for a reason, but you look at what he's done and throughout the year here, you got in AAA 3 starts, 2.53 ERA. He's so much better than I think the numbers obviously indicate. He went to the start 5.52 ERA. Obviously, that was deceiving. For his career in the minor leagues, he's a 2.42 ERA. A guy that was a really good college pitcher, was drafted in the first round, not only out of high school, but then again as the 7th overall pick in 2019. And obviously lost a year because of COVID and everything in 2020. So his minor league experience not as expansive as some other prospects, but that clearly showed he's a really good pitcher, and we saw that. So I don't want to completely remove any of the credit from him or from the Reds bullpen, but a terrible offensive performance nonetheless from this Mets team. You know that Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor are looking back at this game and thinking that they had some real opportunities they missed there. And all you needed, was a run. If you're winning 1-0 going into that 9th inning, does Edwin Diaz come out there, lock down a save? All of a sudden, maybe Max Scherzer, if they got that run early, is a winner. But you lose the game, and I think it is just a sign that there is a problem brewing here with the Mets offense. And maybe I've shrugged it off for the past month because the reality is they've still been winning games. And say what you want about how this team's been constructed and everything else. We talk about what they did, with Scherzer, then without Scherzer. They were 25-14 with him, 25-16 without him. It's remarkable that they hung in there. But now you got Scherzer back. And at a certain point, this offense needs to get back to what they were in the early months of the season. And that's what I want to talk about next, because you look at the April and May numbers, and then you look at what's happened since June 1st, and it's a drastic drop-off for this Mets offense. But before we get into that, if you're ready to pop the question, or if you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. There you can build the engagement ring of her dreams. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. Life special moments should be celebrated with fine jewelry. Blue Nile's jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mets listeners will get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive does include engagement. All you need to do is use the code Locked On. Again, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace by going to BlueNile.com today. So when we look at what this Mets offense did before we got to June and after, drastic shift. Drastic, okay? Since June 1st. Actually, you know what? Let's actually take it back. Let's go to the early part of the season first, right? Beginning of the season through May, the New York Mets scored 266 runs. Only the Los Angeles Dodgers scored more runs. You look at offensive WAR as a team. At 10.6, only the Dodgers were better at 10.9. Home runs, Mets still weren't a great home run hitting team, 47, but that was 17th best. You go to their batting average of 268, best average in the game as a team. On base percentage of 339, best on base percentage as a team. Slugging percentage of 412, not the best, but the 5th best. Still really solid. We talk about WRC plus for players, right? That's weighted runs created plus, measuring hitters based on a league average of 100. You can also look at a team's WRC plus and measure them based on the league average of 100. So the Mets in the first couple months of the season had a 116 WRC plus, which was a single point behind the Los Angeles Dodgers for the best mark in all of baseball. Where has this offense gone since then? Well, since June 1st, 3.3 F4. Okay. What does that mean? Well, 19th best offense. Middle of the pack, right? Not quite. 118 runs scored since June 1st. Where do you think that ranks around teams in baseball? Think it's top 10? No. Top 15? Top 20? Top 25? Stop me. No, none of it. That is the fourth worst offense in all of baseball based on runs scored. Fourth worst. Detroit Tigers, Los Angeles Angels, Oakland Athletics, only teams with a worse offense than the Mets since June 1st. It's the reality of the situation. And you look at their division, the Braves are second behind Toronto in runs scored. The Phillies are fifth. The Marlins, sixth. So right now, since June, 3 teams in this division are top 6 offenses in baseball. And then you got the Mets. And the Mets have a worse offense based on runs scored than even the Nationals. It's abysmal. What's going on here? Look at their average. Their on-base percentage, their slugging percentage. 235 average. Far cry from the 268 average they were going through the first couple months of the season. That is 22nd best, as is their on-base percentage at 305, which is 34 points lower than the 339 on-base percentage they had in the early parts of the season. 382 slugging. That is what? Quick math here. 30 points below the 412 slugging they had early in the season. All of those, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, all 22nd best. Go to home runs. 4-way tie at 31 home runs since June. 20th most, about where they are, honestly, in the early parts of the season. The home runs, while they have been an issue all year, the bigger issue is suddenly that runs, hitting with runners in scoring position, getting on base all the time, having traffic. It just hasn't quite been there. And you look at all of it when it comes to WRC plus. Again, remember, early parts of the season, 116 team WRC plus, 16% better than your league average offense. Since June 1st, they're at 99, a percentage point below, a league average offense. So, yeah, this Mets team offensively has some issues, and they're struggling a little bit here. And I don't think it's time to panic completely. I don't think it's time to say, hey, the Mets are cooked. The Braves are just on fire, and they're going to catch the Mets, and it's all over. And I'm not Mr. Doomsday. I'm not Mr. Pessimism. Anyone who listens to the show knows that I lean more glass half full whenever I can. But I also can't ignore the stats. And the stats are telling us that something's different with this Mets team. What I want to do next is just go player by player here and try to figure out what the problem is. Before we get to that, though, betonline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, as BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, baseball, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so as I said, first couple months of the season, the Mets offense was rolling. So let's go player by player here and see if we can find where the issues lie. We'll start with the most obvious, which is the best hitter on the Mets team, the best offensive player on this Mets team, Pete Alonso. First 51 games of the season in those 2 months, hit 286, 363 on base, 531 slugging, 13 home runs, a 146 WRC plus. Since the calendar turns June, Pete Alonso 255, 342 on base, 571 slugging though, 9 home runs, a 155 WRC plus. So Pete Alonso, when it comes to the all-encompassing metric, he's gotten better and he's hitting more home runs. That's why he's gotten better when it comes to WRC plus. So he's not the problem. Go down the line a little bit. Let's look at Francisco Lindor. Random name here. In 260, 346 on base, 444 slugging. This was in the first couple months of the season, mind you. 51 games played, 8 home runs, had 42 RBIs, a 126 WRC plus. What has he done since the calendar turned to June? Well, Lindor's hitting 224, 294 on base, 394 slugging. 5 home runs, 15 RBIs in 28 games, and 99 WRC plus. That's one problem. Now, you're not going to push him from the lineup, but the Mets need more from Lindor. And obviously, he had the finger issue. He slammed that in the door, and then he tried to push through it. And it's good that he's been out there. And defensively, you need him out there. I think you need his bat in the lineup. I think that, other teams still game plan for him and fear him, but he's got to be better. Moving on to Brandon Nimmo. 293 average for a couple months of the season, 386 on base, 452 slugging, 142 WRC plus. Since 104 WRC plus for Nimmo. Drastic drop off, 243 hitter, 313 on base for Brandon Nimmo, 391 slugging. There's a problem. Moving on to, let's go Jeff McNeil, right? Jeff McNeil, first couple months of the season, 318 hitter, 370 on base, 457 slugging, 138 WRC plus. Since 139 WRC plus, it's been the same guy, 319 hitter, 388 on base, 431 slugging. Consistent as can be. McNeil, Alonso, basically been the same guys all year. Then we go to Starling Marte. You look at what he did in the early parts of the season, 286 hitter, 327 on base, 454 slugging, 124 WRC plus. Bring it over since 274 hitter, 343 on base, 463 slugging, 132 WRC plus. So he's got a little better. So McNeil, not a problem. Alonso, not a problem. Marte, not a problem. Nimmo, a little bit of a problem. Lindor, a little bit of a problem. And we go to Mark Canha. Early parts of the season, hit 307, 376 on base, 407 slugging, 130 WRC plus. Since down to a 99 WRC plus, hitting 200, 333 on base, 318 slugging. Powers eluded him, average has eluded him. Luckily, he's still gotten on base because he's walked at a 11.8% clip, but offensive numbers down. Then we go to Eduardo Escobar. Early parts of the season, thought he struggled, right? 229 average, 310 on base, 374 slugging, 99 WRC plus. Since June, 90 WRC plus. Been worse. 224 hitter, 233 on base, 459 slugging. I will give him, he's hit 6 home runs because he's gone on a little bit of a hot streak. And I think he's starting to come out of it where you don't pinpoint him as the problem right now, but he had been the problem a lot in the early parts of June. This one's going to hurt me. Louis Guillorme. It wasn't sustainable, clearly. I didn't think it would fall off as much as it did, though. 365 hitter, first 33 games and 99 plate appearances, 443 on base, 459 slugging, a 164 WRC plus, all the way down to a 50 WRC plus, 215 hitter, 271 on base, 228 slugging. Not good for Guillorme. The catcher spot has basically been a black hole all year. No reason to really harp on it. You look at JD Davis, early parts of the season, hit 232, 326 on base, 341 slugging, 98 WRC plus. Gotten a little better. 261 hitter since June, 342 on base, 348 slugging, 104 WRC plus, but still not doing enough to really change things for this Mets team. And other than that, I mean, look at Dom, and it's just too small of a sample size since June. He actually has a 142 WRC plus, but it's 21 at bats, and we all know what he did early parts of the season. The bottom line here is this Mets offense has struggled, and there's been a lot of guys that you can really attribute that struggle to, but they need a spark. They need something that can break them out of the funk. And I think back to 2015, a Mets team that right around now was sputtering a bit. And look, this Mets team's not that team. This Mets team's done way better, has a great record, still one of the best teams in the National League, first to 50. They have been awesome. I don't want to make it seem like suddenly you should panic. But I just try to point out, there's an issue. There is a problem. In 2015, there was an offensive problem. What did the Mets do? They traded for Juan Uribe. They traded for Kelly Johnson. And before that, they promoted Michael Conforto. Mark Vientos is waiting in the wings, man. And how many more times you want to send JD Davis up there against a left-handed pitcher, mind you, and have him completely overmatched? How much longer you want to do it? You want to keep going down this road? Time and again. It's worth looking up. Let's look up JD Davis's splits really quick here before we close. Because, hey, that's his job, right? He's the big right-handed bat that's supposed to come in and get the job done against left-handed pitching. Well, this year, what's he doing against lefties? He's hitting 216, 333 on base, 297 slugging, a single home run, and now 74 at-bats against lefties. Against righties, has been way better, 263 average, 322 on base, 375 slugging. Bottom line, and actually has a sub 700 OPS against both. He has not been good really against anyone. And again, I don't want to just be harping on this guy, but it's getting to the point where it gets frustrating. When you look at Mark Vientos and you see what he's done this year and what he's done, particularly since the calendar turned to May and in June, even as well, when this Mets lineup started to struggle. Here's a guy that's not struggling right now. He's hitting home runs. He's got some pop. Just get him out there because you put him out there against left-handed pitching. I promise you, he's going to do a lot better than JD Davis. Um, and he could just jolt the lineup with his presence. Just getting a youth infusion right now, I think does a lot for you. So, hey, I'm of the belief that JD Davis has options. No reason not to option him. No reason. At this point, you're not getting anything for JD Davis or Dom Smith. I did say on today's show we're going to talk about a Joey Votto trade. We pushed that to tomorrow's show because I'm going to do a crossover with Jeff Carr, a host of Locked On Reds, also our head guy here when it comes to Locked On MLB, our channel coordinator. So it'd be great to talk to him about not only this series, we're going to go through that Joey Votto trade I talked about. And the whole premise there is that Joey Votto, if you look at his numbers after the first month of the season, he's been really good. And if you could get Joey Votto just simply for money alone, and you can flip a JD or a Dom for him, and it costs literally zero prospect capital, and you simply just get a better player, and because money doesn't matter, you don't have to worry about the contract, and you can get a guy that's going to get on base at a 380 clip, if nothing else. That's why you make a trade like that. And again, we'll kind of go into that, in depth tomorrow. But those are the type of moves the Mets might have to make. And look, Dom's been a lot better recently. So at this point, yeah, obviously you can kind of keep him in there until you make a different move. If you were to get Trey Mancini or something, obviously something would have to give. But to me, the simple answer that is staring Billy Epler and company in the face right now, you got a series at Citi Field against the Miami Marlins starting on Thursday night. That should be Mark Vientos' debut. Just that simple. And if you want more of an in-depth look at that, got Friday's episode this past week where I talked all about Vientos, what he's been doing, and why he should be promoted. So I really believe in that. I think that if he comes up, you could also see a trickle-down effect where some of these other guys will hit as well. If it was up to me, I'd make that switch tomorrow. I've been saying since the offseason that JD Davis is blocking Mark Vientos, and that's why I wanted him moved all offseason. That's why I was always talking about JD Davis trades. He has the options to do it. You send him down. You don't lose him for the season. You let JD Davis be a 4A player and rake against AAA pitching. And if Mark Vientos doesn't work out and you need JD back up, you can do that. You can do that. But right now, why not make that move and see what happens? Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Prospects, hosted by Lindsey Crosby. Locked On Prospects is where you want to go to stay today with everything going on in Major League Baseball when it comes to the stars of tomorrow. And you got the draft coming up. So he's got great draft coverage for you as well. Make sure you follow Locked On MLB Prospects wherever you get podcasts.